crater highlands of Tanzania. In their shade lies one of the greatest wonders of the animal world, the grasslands of the Serengeti. This place, with its vast animal populations, is known all over the world as a symbol of wildlife conservation. Scientists here can study how animals live together, especially the big cats and their prey, on a scale that is possible nowhere else in the world. Lions are often regarded as the top predators, but studies show that they play a surprisingly minor role in the ecosystem. But people like symbols, and lions are the symbol of wild Africa and the conservation of its wildlife. But out here on the open plains, their life is not easy. In fact, the lion's lot is the hardest of all the animals of the Serengeti. February in the Serengeti. Gathered beside the Gol Kopjes are the largest herds of wild animals to be found in the world today. Such numbers are possible only because, by chance and uniquely in Africa, the park and its surroundings survived intact, offering enough space to provide for all their needs the whole year round. This is one of the few places on Earth where the old rules of nature are still in force. For biologists, the Serengeti is a unique window on the natural world. The land round the granite domes of the Kopjes is the territory of the Gol Pride, a group of lions whose family history has been followed by zoologists for nearly 40 years. In 1998, they were doing particularly well. 6 mothers managed to raise 9 large, healthy young. The scientists have rarely seen the pride so big. Judging by the number of herbivores in the area, it looks as if the lions can feed at will. But things are not as easy as all that for them out on the open plains. The prey animals can see them coming from miles away. A lion you can see is no danger. What at first sight looks like a dramatic life and death struggle turns out to be the light-hearted morning games of the young hunters. The wildebeest are alert, but not unduly worried. They seem to be playing a game of cat and mouse, almost sharing the joke. But they are not all fit and healthy. Among the huge herds, many wildebeest are old or sick or both. The game can quickly become serious. The lions are not really hungry, but no hunter can resist the opportunity of taking such easy prey. These unfortunate marginal animals make the lion's life easy at this time of year. In the years 1997 and 98, the herds stayed an unusually long time in the area of the Gol Kopjes because good rains produced an abundance of fresh grass. For 9 months, the Gol lions lived on the fat of the land. Almost all the cubs from the preceding year survived, which is very rare for lions in this territory. The awesome animals on their kill, surrounded by apparently terrified herbivores, create an illusion of total dominance. Lions, above all, seem to earn the title of the all-powerful king of the beasts. Even when they eat grass like domestic tabbies to help them throw up hairs and splinters of bone. Their sleek, muscular bodies, their fearful strength, and their lordly calm make them the very image of royalty. Before the relationship between predators and their prey was properly studied, it was assumed that carnivores were the most important factor in determining the fate of herbivores. A Thompson's gazelle buck uses its cheek glands to mark out its territory. It seems so small and helpless with nowhere to hide, completely at the mercy of the fastest cats on earth. The lightning sprint of a cheetah. Pure physical power and coordination, grace and elegance in its finest form on 4 legs. But the hunter must make no mistake. It's not speed alone that brings success, but skill. Hunting at this level is a mind game. To catch the buck, the cheetah must choose exactly the right moment to attack. Scenes like this have had far more influence on people's perception of nature than all the technical studies in the world. Watching her hunt, we feel that we understand what it is to be a cheetah, mistress of the chase. So why have the numbers of cheetahs in the Serengeti fallen steadily in the last few decades, while those of the antelopes and others have stayed level or even risen? The fact is that the life of the quarry animals is not as dangerous as it might seem. On the open plains, the herds are not constantly in fear of their lives. They're here for the short, sweet grass, which they need all the more urgently now in March, because they're about to produce their calves. During pregnancy and while she is suckling, a mother needs plenty of minerals. Here in the south, the grasses are rich in phosphorus, which is in short supply elsewhere in the Serengeti. It's one of the main reasons why the wildebeest gather here on the plains. The knock-kneed calves seem doomed from birth in a place which is supposed to be swarming with predators, red in tooth and claw. But they do astonishingly well here. One reason is that most of them are born in a few short weeks. When the first calves appear, thousands of other wildebeest cows give birth almost at the same time. No one knows exactly how this synchronization works, but the result is that the predators can take a much smaller proportion of the newborn young than if they were born over a longer period. In recent years, though, for some reason, the calving time of the wildebeest has been extended to rather more than 2 months. Because of this, the losses seem to be increasing. But another tactic still helps the calves to survive. They are incredibly quick to get to their feet. Most need less than 3 minutes. Within an hour, they can follow their mother. But here, beside the Gol Kopjes, they can relax. The wildebeest will not move far for the time being because there's plenty of food here. Among the large mammals of the Serengeti, after the wildebeest, Thompson's gazelle is the second most common. Even the adults are defenseless against most predators, and at birth they're completely helpless. The survival strategy of the young gazelles is opposite to that of the gregarious wildebeest. The mother is completely alone and unconcealed. Her only precaution was to scan the area carefully for signs of predators before she gave birth. Immediately after the birth, the calf must be thoroughly cleaned, so that it has as little scent as possible. Like the wildebeest, the little Tommy gets quickly to its feet. They must soon be gone because the scent of blood might attract predators. They have no herd to provide them with cover, and there aren't many predators against which the mother can defend her baby. Its survival now depends on finding a hiding place and staying there without moving. Half an hour after it is born, the calf staggers away with its mother. For the first few days, it can't run fast, so it looks for a clump of grass where it can hide. Rather than lying low like the gazelles, the young wildebeest depend from the start on being able to keep pace with their mothers. Zebra foals, whose families often move with the wildebeest, respond to the same challenges in the same way. They are born well developed in the relative safety of the herd, and they must also be good on their feet from their first day. For the young Tommy, everything depends on not being seen while it's being suckled by its mother. It would be very bad luck to be spotted by a predator in just these few minutes. She keeps her visit very short. Soon afterwards, the calf is once more invisible, even in grass only a few centimeters high. The female cheetah has absolutely no idea where the calf has gone. If it doesn't move a muscle, it will have a chance. This time she has lost a breeding season, but in her lifetime more of her young will survive than those of the female cheetah. Some herds keep moving even during the calving season. When they arrive at the Gol Kopjes, some of their newborn calves have already walked nearly 40 kilometers, and a few have lost contact with their mothers. Confused, this calf tries to join every group that wanders past. It finds no welcome. It has to run the gauntlet of the whole mixed herd. And of others waiting in the grass. This little wildebeest is unbelievably lucky. The hyenas are fully fed and too slow off the mark to catch it. Finally, it finds a larger column of wildebeest, but that is not the end of its problems. It approaches each female full of hope, but none of them will give her valuable milk to an orphan. The calf falls further and further behind the herd, unnoticed. Its mother might be looking for it many kilometers away. This is how many long, lonely journeys come to an abrupt end. For weeks, the gull lions feed themselves effortlessly on the strays. Compared to the overall number of calves, these isolated casualties are insignificant. All in all, the hunters have only a small influence on the wildebeest population. The true rulers in this country are not teeth and claws, but hooves and horns. In the Serengeti in the 60s, people tried for the first time to keep track of the numbers of herbivores and predators over a large area and for a long period. This was the start of one of the most comprehensive monitoring programs in the world. Since then, the Frankfurt Zoological Society have made regular counts of the herds. The pilots fly at an accurately determined height along dead straight transects. Perpendicularly mounted cameras take hundreds of pictures at regular intervals, which between them represent about 1% of the whole area occupied by the herds. Each slide covers a precisely calculated area. The scientist can estimate the actual size of the herds by counting the animals in the pictures. The margins of error are relatively small if the flight was on exactly the right line and at the right height. The results were amazing. The first count in 1957 showed some 200,000 wildebeest. After the early 60s, when livestock all around the Serengeti were vaccinated against rinderpest, the count rose to nearly 1.5 million in only 15 years. Then they reached the carrying capacity of the pasture. These huge numbers could only survive if they had room to roam, to find the food they needed. From the plains of the southeastern Serengeti, they have always moved to the west during the dry season. In 1959, the Serengeti was expanded to the north. At the beginning of the 70s, the herds advanced through this corridor for the first time into the Masai Mara Reserve in Kenya. They could still find food there, even at the height of the dry season. No one expected this to happen when the park was extended. It was pure coincidence that the way to the north was opened at the same time as the numbers of wildebeest were rising. The zoologists were fascinated. Under their eyes, a giant experiment was taking place. A whole ecosystem was changing. What new balance would develop between the species? How would the predators respond? What influence would they have on the way things developed? These were all questions which until then it had not been possible to follow in the wild. The lion researchers were already in place when the eruption of the herds began. They knew most of the prides of the southern grasslands down to the last individuals. They recognized them by the pattern of their whiskers. However, to keep tabs on them, some of them occasionally have to suffer a little indignity. Every year they dart some of the lions. The radio batteries last for only 2 years and the transmitters have to be replaced regularly. Cats and man have been in contact for more than 40 years, though the individual researchers have changed every 2 years. While this film was being made, Canadian Grant Hopcroft was on location. With the Park Veterinary Service, he measures and examines every darted lion.
I'm looking for this. This one here.
The information he collects reflects the lion's overall condition and shows how they're coping with the variety of prey available to them. Blood samples enable them to check for infectious diseases transmitted from the domestic animals that live around the park.
Bigger size? Yeah, 18 is the largest.
This work might one day be very important. It was rinderpest, a disease of domestic cattle brought in from Europe, that saw off millions of ruminants in the Serengeti in the early 20th century. The research into the Serengeti lions is the longest and most detailed ever carried out into a free-living mammal population, and every year it produces new information. Several times a month, Grant Hopcroft makes contact with the individual prides. He travels in wide circles round the area, using the antenna mounted on his vehicle. The signal shows him the direction from several kilometers away. Over the years, scientists have built up an accurate picture of the lion territories in the southern Serengeti. It's enough to collar only one animal from each pride, because the other females are usually not far away. They only mark lionesses these days. They remain at the center of their pride, while the males are regularly replaced. Although the southern Serengeti consists mostly of open country, without radio collars the lions would be easy to miss, hidden among the golden grass. The study includes more than the size of the territories. It's equally important to follow individuals. How is the population doing? Who is bringing up cubs? Which young survive? And where do they go when they leave home? Prides are made up of closely related females defending a common territory. The males are only passing visitors for a year or two. This is how the distribution of the lion territories looked in 1998. 15 prides share the grasslands. The males dominate the female groups, reserving the mating rights to themselves by fighting off other males. Sometimes they can cover more than one territory. Here, a coalition of 2 dominant males lays claim to 13 females from 3 different prides. If the females were too many, they could split the group and make separate territories. The Gol pride has one of the largest territories. They need plenty of space to survive through the dry season when prey is in short supply. Now in April, they're still feasting on the abundance of the herds. Most of the pride has moved to the eastern edge of the territory where the wildebeest are most numerous. In the center of their territory, near the kopjes, a strange female has appeared. She belongs to no pride but lives alone with her young. The scientists call a landless animal like this a nomad. The area seems promising, but she must be careful. She can't afford to take risks. It could mean the end of her young. The cubs have a hard life because their mother is constantly on the move. However, they are well fed. Shortage of food is not their problem. Their mother is more concerned to keep them safe. Cautiously, she first reconnoiters the rocks alone. The steep, smooth rocks are hard to climb, but the place seems safe. They feel more confident and struggle to the top. The kopjes make a good vantage point and a hiding place in the flat country. Lions like to sit up here. After they have climbed the first rise, they find an exciting playground. Here there are strange animals that they don't see in the grasslands. Bush hyraxes balance on the swaying twigs, nibbling at caper flowers. Above the leathery rosettes of their leaves, colourful clusters of aloe flowers attract sunbirds. In this unfamiliar world, the little lions soon return to their mother's side. She has found water in one of the cracks. Natural cisterns like this are another reason why the kopjes are so attractive. The water supply makes it possible for a much greater variety of animals to live here than in the relatively monotonous grasslands. Something is disturbing the nomad. Finally, her suspicion turns to certainty. Suddenly, the young are in great danger. They must not be caught either by the lion or the lioness. Strange youngsters are competition and fair game. It's panic stations, every man for himself. One of the cubs has been seen squeezing into a crack between the rocks. The female in the hole is relatively young and somewhat apprehensive when she sees the nomad. But there is no doubt that she has claims on this place. The male doesn't hold back either, and the little one is trapped. The nomad furiously sets about the Gol lioness. She even manages to drive the lady of the house back into the hole. The lion, meanwhile, has got hold of the young one in the rocky crevice. He has nothing against the nomad, but strange youngsters are not welcome in his area. The third cub has also escaped into the grass. Anxiously, he listens to the roars of the adults in the rocky labyrinth. Too late, she notices what is happening between the rocks, but she doesn't hesitate to have a go, even at the powerful male. The male avoids a serious fight with the nomad because he sees her as another possible mate, but he defends himself energetically enough to draw blood. He could have killed her when he had her in the tight corner, but now she seems to have forgotten the danger. Frothing with fury, she calls for her cubs. They are scared stiff. The noise of the fighting has driven them even further away. It's situations like this that make the difference between success and failure in a lion family. The young, frightened female will soon once more have the protection of her pride when the Gol lions return to the kopjes. She will not have to care for her young alone, unlike the unfortunate nomad. Hours later, far out in the grassland, one of the young finally comes back to his mother. He is still deeply upset, as if he knew how narrowly he had escaped death. Between the rocks, they all relax once more. The male isn't particularly upset by the tension between the females. In fact, the scent of the stranger is quite pleasant to him. For all her bravery, there was no way that the nomad could have prevented the disaster that overtook her family. It's an ever-present danger for single lion mothers. Scientists today see the protection of the young as the main reason for the development of lion prides. The third cub will not return either. Alone in the grass, he must have been killed by another predator. Among hunters, every other carnivore is a rival to be eliminated. In the records of the Lion Research Group, there is hardly a single nomadic lioness who managed to raise her young to independence. Far behind the Gol Kopjes, old crater walls rise on the horizon. Those volcanoes created this rich, flat grassland. But at the same time, they cause the ordeal that the Gol pride has to undergo every year. Ol Donyo Lengai, the holy mountain of the Maasai, today the only volcano in the area that is still active. It last erupted in 1967. For hundreds of thousands of years, the volcanic ash was carried to the northwest by the prevailing wind, creating the vast flat plains. Close to the mountains, only grass can grow with its shallow roots. These mountains formed and nourished the Serengeti. But the gigantic block of the ancient massif behind Lengai has an effect on the climate that imposes a heavy burden on the animals. The extinct craters force the clouds upwards. As they cool down, they drop their rain. The southeast slopes of the mountain are covered with rampant, dripping cloud forest. When the air currents roll down the northwest slopes of the mountains, they warm up again. But now they are so dry that they suck up what little moisture there is. Very soon after the rainy season, drought develops quickly in this rain shadow. Now the clouds will bring no more rain, but disperse as they stream down the slopes. In a few weeks, the lush, green land is changed. For more than 6 months, it will produce no more new grass, and most of the waterholes will dry out. As if taunting the land, the clouds roll every day across a parched, yellow desert. Long before the weather reaches this stage, the wildebeest herds prepare to depart. The scattered groups form into columns of march, and soon the whole mass sets off to the northwest. Some of the predators will follow them. These adolescent cheetahs have just been abandoned by their mother and must now try to manage on their own. They are surrounded by wildebeest, but the increase in the herds did not benefit the cheetahs in the Serengeti. On the contrary, as the herds increased, so did the numbers of hyenas and lions, and more young cheetahs were killed by rival predators. Since the 60s, the numbers of cheetahs have fallen steadily, though they have always had plenty of wildebeest to hunt. Both males in the cheetah group are confident enough to try their luck with a calf. Wildebeest are not especially fast, and the first cheetah quickly catches up as expected. But faced by a determined mother, his courage deserts him. The second, too, makes no more than a token attack. But in a year's time, he and his brother will be a threat even to full-grown wildebeest. The beginning of June. The full moon brings on the main rutting season among the wildebeest. For weeks now, the bulls have been scrapping amongst themselves. Now the fights have become serious. Long duels like this are not common. The fighting only becomes really violent in the few places where the herds stay put for long periods. This is not to say that the bulls normally ignore each other. During the rut in the more typical wandering herds, they must mark out new breeding arenas every day. Not a job for the faint-hearted. After a few weeks, the bulls are worn out. For many of them, this is the climax of their lives. They hardly eat anything. They spend all their time driving away rivals or hunting down receptive females. The cows with young seem unimpressed by the whole business. Every day they wander unmoved through the territories of dozens of bulls. Each bull tries to keep the females for as long as possible in his little territory of a few hundred square meters to check whether they are receptive. The bulls have to follow the herd, establishing themselves again and again in the path of the migrating females before they all pass by. It's an endless effort, but they seem to enjoy every minute of it. Especially energetic and strong animals mate dozens of times. After all, who knows if they will survive to see the next season? The passing wildebeest provide the Gol lions with another good chance to hunt. The adolescents do not know that this could be their last chance for many months. But travelling wildebeest are not easy to catch unawares. Because the column is so narrow, they're hard to ambush. Many eyes are alert for danger on every side. Even for the experienced lionesses, it is no easy business. Contrary to popular opinion, the scientists find that when lions hunt wildebeest, cooperation among them is rare. In this case, typically, the attack is carried out without evident communication between the hunters. Most members of the pride merely watch from a distance. None of them is keen to risk unnecessary injury in a fight. If the lioness is successful, everyone will get a share of the meat. This reluctance to hunt goes completely against all the clichés describing lions as cooperative hunters, but it has been confirmed here hundreds of times. Soon, every failure will cost the lions dear. The parched land provides no more prey. The few ostriches and gazelles are far too difficult to catch. Amazingly, there are still a few warthogs here. Almost all the other herbivores have had to move away, but they can still find food. Buried in the rock-hard earth are juicy grass roots and tubers, and the warthogs know how to get to them. The underground parts of plants contain their stores for the next rainy season, and even a little moisture, a valuable food source which the warthogs can exploit without competition from any other animals. But they have a different problem at this time of year. They can't sweat, so they need to wallow in order to cool down. If they have to, they can survive for some weeks without a bath, but while there are still puddles to be found, they can't resist cooling off in them every day. It's a dangerous addiction, which leaves them very vulnerable. For the hungry lions of the Gol pride, heat-stressed warthogs soon become their most important food. Warthogs have very poor eyesight. What's more, the last of the water lies at the bottom of depressions, so that they can't see their surroundings. Predators can creep up on them unseen. The wallowing warthogs are constantly on the alert, but their own movements in the mud drown out warning sounds. Soon, the Gol lions are living almost exclusively on warthogs. Scientists find that without them, large parts of the southern Serengeti would be practically uninhabitable for lions during the dry season. The only problem is that there are not very many warthogs. By August, there's no room for the young lions in the Gol pride. They will have to go off and find their own food. Even the daughters who would normally stay are driven away. This year there are just too many of them. In the dry season, the barren land round the Gol Kopjes can't feed them all. At first, some of the youngsters stay together, but constant quarrelling soon drives them apart. The young females have a particularly hard time in this scorched and empty landscape. They try to stay for as long as they can in the places that they know, but there is little prey, and they quickly lose condition. The wildebeest left the grasslands long ago to move far to the north. The rain shadow of the volcanoes doesn't reach this far, and there's still food and water here even in the dry season. While their sisters stayed in the south, the young males of the Gol pride followed the herds. They had been surviving on carrion left over by other hunters. Here they can find plenty of prey, but they still have to learn to catch it without help. The herd can smell the lion. Lions are often said to take advantage of the wind direction while they're hunting, but it's not true. It's not inexperience that makes this youngster give himself away. The swirling breeze keeps wafting his scent towards the herd, making the animals uneasy. But there are signs of predators all over the place here, and the zebras are very thirsty. In the tall grass, he creeps closer, meter by meter. At last, he is close enough to attack. But he can't yet manage the last phase of the hunt alone. The milling crowd confuses him. Another gust of wind startles the animals, but this time an old wildebeest bull is trapped in the mud. The learner is at a loss. The decisive leap at this stage was always made by the experienced lionesses. The bull makes one last heroic effort. And finally, all those months of practice pay off. The instincts of the young hunter come into play. He's still clumsy, but the wildebeest is dying. In fact, the lion has only brought forward a little his inevitable death from old age. For the young lion, this is an important step on the road to independence. But his real trials still lie ahead. They will come when he has to find a territory of his own. His siblings in the south have still not made their first successful hunt, and they have no chance of finding a territory. They have become nomads, and at the most difficult time of year. All the lions in the grasslands are hungry now. The weakest are dying. When the herds return, they will meet only those few hunters which survived the ordeal of the big hunger. This is why lions have so little impact on the migrating herds. Without them, very little would change in the Serengeti. They can't follow the herds because their young need safe, well-protected territories. Not lions, but rainfall governs the numbers of wildebeest and zebra. Her stomach rumbling, she dreams of better times when she and her powerful family were safe and well. The blessing of a long rainy season did not last. Relentlessly, the Gol pride has been reduced to 6 females who can just survive the dry season in their 200 square kilometer territory. In many of the last 40 years, scientists have witnessed the harsh lot of the lions on the plains. But their news fell for the most part on deaf ears. We still prefer to see lions as all-powerful symbols of the wilderness. We don't want them to be pathetic starvelings. We want kings to marvel at, to keep alive in us echoes of the country of our ancestors, when beyond the circle of firelight, mighty hunters ruled the night. Perhaps these ancient voices will persuade us to protect this land as it is now, for future generations.